Elena Hart smoothed her wedding dress for what felt like the 100th time, her palms clammy despite the crisp winter air. Guests whispered behind the delicate lace curtains of the grand chapel, their eyes flicking between the ornate doors and her anxious face. Every chime of the distant clock seemed to echo through the hollow space in her chest. "Are you sure he's coming?" her maid of honor, Sophie, whispered, clutching her own bouquet. Elena forced a smile, but it faltered. "He said he would. He promised." Her voice was tight, brittle. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The orchestra's gentle melodies filled the chapel, yet Elena felt a gnawing emptiness as if the music had no purpose. She tried to steady her breath, to remind herself that this was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Instead, panic prickled at the edges of her composure. The doors opened. Guests turned expectantly, faces alight with joy or curiosity. But it wasn't Adrian. Not yet. Elena's stomach lurched. "Where is he?" she muttered under her breath. Her father, standing stiffly at her side, cleared his throat. "Perhaps there's been a delay," he said, though his words lacked conviction. A half-hour passed. Whispers escalated to murmurs, murmurs to outright speculation. "Cold feet," someone murmured. "Runaway groom." Elena's vision blurred. She gripped her bouquet so tightly the stems pressed into her palms. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "He wouldn't." She had waited 3 years for this day. They had dreamed together, nights filled with soft laughter and whispered plans, mornings spent over coffee imagining a shared future. And now, nothing. Finally, Sophie reached for her hand. "Elena, it's okay. Maybe his." "Elena, honey, it's time to go," her mother's voice quivered. "We can't." Elena shook her head violently. I can't," she said, tears spilling freely. "I can't walk down that aisle alone." Her father's face tightened, lines of worry deepening. "Sweetheart, he's not coming. You have to accept it." A hollow realization struck her like ice. She was abandoned. Not by fate, not by chance, but by the one person who had promised forever. Her legs trembled as she stepped away from the altar, the guests' stares burning into her back. She wanted to scream, to rage, to beg him to explain, but what could he say? What could ever justify this? Back in the quiet sanctuary of the chapel, Elena sank to the marble floor. Sophie knelt beside her, brushing stray strands of hair from her tear-streaked face. He left me," Elena whispered, voice breaking. "He actually left me." Sophie squeezed her hand. "I know. I'm so sorry. But you're stronger than you think. You'll get through this. I promise." Elena swallowed hard, forcing herself to nod, though inside, her heart was splintering. This wasn't just a broken engagement, it was the collapse of every dream she had dared to build. As she rose, straightening her dress and taking a deep, shuddering breath, a cold clarity settled over her. She would survive. She would rebuild. And one day, she would be more than the naive girl left at the altar. But in that moment, with the chapel silent and empty except for the lingering scent of roses and heartbreak, Elena Hart made a vow to herself. Never again. 3 years had passed. Elena Hart stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, staring at the city below. The skyline glimmered like a promise she had once thought she'd lost forever. Her reflection in the glass revealed a woman transformed, poised, confident, and meticulously put together. Gone was the trembling girl who had been left at the altar, replaced by a professional who commanded respect and admiration. The office door opened quietly, and Sophie stepped in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You're up early," Sophie remarked, setting 1 cup beside Elena's laptop. "I don't sleep like I used to," Elena replied, forcing a small smile. "Deadlines have a funny way of keeping you awake." Sophie raised an eyebrow. "And yet you look unstoppable." Elena laughed softly, the sound light but tinged with something she hadn't felt in years, relief. I suppose I am. At least, I have to be. It hadn't been easy. The months following her wedding day humiliation had been a blur of heartache and awkward social encounters. Family gatherings were now minefields, each question and pitying glance a reminder of Adrian's absence. Work became her refuge, a place where she could lose herself in numbers, strategies, and growth. She clawed her way up the corporate ladder, determined to prove her worth, to herself and the world. Her phone buzzed. A message from a colleague, rumor, Kane Enterprises acquiring our company. Thoughts? Elena froze, her grip tightening around her coffee cup. Kane. The name hit like a jolt of lightning, unearthing memories she had carefully buried. She hadn't thought of Adrian in years, not until now. Her pulse quickened, and for a moment, the confident mask she wore so well threatened to crack. Sophie noticed her pause. What is it? Elena shook her head, forcing a casual tone. Nothing. Just work stuff. But her mind raced. Could it really be him? Adrian Kane, the man who had abandoned her, now entering her professional world. The next few days blurred into a tense dance of rumors and speculation. Elena kept her distance, focused on protecting her company from the looming acquisition. Yet she couldn't help but glance at the boardroom door, imagining the moment he would appear. One evening, after a long day of meetings, she sat alone in her office, reviewing reports. A shadow fell across her desk, and she looked up. Miss Hart, a smooth, familiar voice said. Her stomach clenched. She looked up into the sharp features and piercing eyes she had once loved and feared she would never see again. Mr. Kane, she managed, her voice steady though her heart raced. I didn't expect to see you here. I wasn't expecting this meeting to be so professional, he said, his lips curving into a small, apologetic smile. 3 years is a long time, isn't it? Elena straightened in her chair, her composure returning. Time doesn't erase responsibilities. I manage this company, Mr. Kane. I don't take kindly to surprises, especially from people who disappear. His expression darkened, just slightly, as if the memory of that day was etched into him too. I know I hurt you, he admitted quietly. And I've spent every day regretting it. Elena's jaw tightened. She had built walls to guard her heart, but a flicker of the girl she had been, the one who had loved him fiercely, resisted retreating completely. Regret doesn't undo the past, she said firmly, standing. And it certainly doesn't mean I owe you a second chance. Adrian's eyes lingered on her, a mixture of longing and something unspoken. Elena turned back to her desk, refusing to let the memories of pain and love entangle her. She had survived once. She could survive again. But deep down, a quiet warning whispered, this wasn't over. The boardroom smelled of polished wood and fresh coffee, an aroma that somehow felt both familiar and alien. Elena Hart sat at the head of the table, her posture straight, her fingers drumming lightly on the polished surface. Around her, the senior staff shuffled papers and exchanged anxious glances. The rumors were true, Kane Enterprises had taken over the company. And at the head of it all was Adrian Kane. The door opened with a quiet authority. Heads turned. Hearts skipped. And then, there he was. Adrian Kane, dressed in a tailored navy suit that seemed designed to accentuate every inch of control and confidence he exuded. His gaze swept the room before landing on her, lingering just a moment too long, and Elena felt her carefully built armor tighten. Good morning, he said smoothly, voice low and deliberate, almost teasing. I trust everyone is eager to discuss the acquisition terms. Elena's jaw stiffened, but she didn't falter. Morning, Mr. Kane. We've prepared the necessary reports for your review. Shall we begin? He nodded, but his eyes remained on her, sharp and calculating. By all means, he said, settling at the head of the table, right across from her. Minutes stretched into tension-filled silence as figures exchanged figures and graphs, projections and contingencies. Elena maintained her composure, answering questions with precision and authority, refusing to let the memory of heartbreak cloud her judgment. But she could feel Adrian's gaze on her, weighing her, challenging her, and reminding her of everything she had lost. Finally, the meeting adjourned. Staff filtered out, leaving Elena alone with him. The sudden quiet pressed in, making the air between them almost unbearable. "Alone," he said, leaning against the edge of the table. "I always preferred our meetings like this, one-on-one." Elena straightened, her fingers brushing the edge of her chair. "Don't make this personal, Adrian. This is business." "I know," he said, eyes darkening slightly, "but I also know it used to be more than business. You remember that, don't you?" Her pulse quickened, betraying her attempt at control. "I remember that you left me. And no amount of charm will erase that." He stepped closer, his tone shifting, softening. "I know. I was a coward. I made mistakes, big ones. And I can't take back the pain I caused you." Elena's heart thumped, a mix of anger, disbelief, and something dangerously close to longing. 3 years, Adrian. 3 years I spent rebuilding my life while you disappeared. Do you have any idea what that felt like? Yes, he admitted quietly. Every single day. His voice trembled, not with weakness, but with a vulnerability she hadn't expected. "I didn't leave because I didn't love you. I left because I didn't know how to fix everything that was falling apart. I thought I was protecting you, but I was only protecting myself." Elena took a slow, steadying breath. "Protecting yourself doesn't justify abandoning me. Don't expect forgiveness, not yet. And definitely not trust." Adrian's expression darkened, but he didn't argue. Instead, he simply said, "I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know the truth. One day, I hoped we might find our way back." She turned to face the city skyline through the glass, blocking him out, but she could feel the weight of his presence behind her, the same man who had once held her heart. Finally, she spoke, her voice measured and cool. "The past is the past, Adrian. You came back, and now you'll see, this time, I'm not the girl you left behind." He nodded slowly, a flicker of admiration, or maybe challenge, in his eyes. "I wouldn't have it any other way." And with that, he left, leaving Elena to wonder if the man standing in her office was the one who had abandoned her, or someone she might one day find herself tempted to trust. The slow burn had begun. The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting parallel lines across Elena Hart's office desk. She adjusted her blazer and opened her laptop, determined to focus on the day ahead. She had mastered the art of compartmentalizing, work first, emotions buried deep beneath layers of control. The soft click of the door startled her. Adrian Kane stepped in, holding a stack of reports, his tailored suit perfectly crisp, his presence impossible to ignore. "Good morning, Miss Hart," he said casually, setting the reports on her desk. "I thought we could review these together." Elena looked up, her expression unreadable. "I can manage, thank you." He raised an eyebrow, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "I'm not sure you can. You've always had a tendency to underestimate me." Her chest tightened at the memory hidden behind that playful tone. She forced herself to focus. "I'm perfectly capable of handling my responsibilities, Mr. Kane. I suggest you review the numbers on your own." Adrian leaned casually against the corner of her desk. "I'm not here for the numbers. Not today." Elena's hand paused over her keyboard. "Then why are you here?" she asked, voice even but sharp. "To see how the strongest, most capable woman I know handles a challenge," he said quietly, eyes locking onto hers. "And maybe remind her that some things never truly fade." Elena swallowed hard, forcing herself to turn her attention back to her screen. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, pretending the flurry of spreadsheets and projections could shield her from the tension coiling in the room. Over the next few days, Adrian's subtle presence became a constant. He would stop by with coffee, offering her the one she liked with the exact right amount of cream. He would linger in hallways, asking about minor business details just to watch her respond. He never crossed professional lines, but his every glance, every carefully chosen word, reminded her of the past. Elena hated it, and a small part of her hated herself for noticing. She had spent 3 years rebuilding, strengthening, creating a life that no one could shake. And yet, Adrian's quiet persistence made her pulse quicken in ways she hadn't felt since before her heartbreak. One late afternoon, she stayed behind to finish a report. The office was nearly empty, the city below bathed in gold and pink sunset light. She heard the soft echo of footsteps and looked up to find Adrian standing in the doorway. "You're working late again," he observed. "You always did." "Obsessed with perfection." "I like to do my job well," she replied, trying to sound indifferent. "Unlike some people, I don't leave my responsibilities behind." He chuckled softly, a warm sound that sent a shiver down her spine. "Touché. You've changed. Stronger, smarter, even more beautiful than I remembered." Elena's chest tightened, but she held her ground. "Flattery won't distract me. Not from work. Not from the past. And certainly not from the present." He leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice. "I didn't come back to distract you. I came back to make things right. But if you won't let me, I'll wait." She met his gaze, her eyes hard, but her heart betrayed her with a flutter she quickly smothered. "Waiting won't change anything," she said, her voice firm. "You left once. Don't expect me to hand my heart back on a silver platter." He smiled, a hint of both mischief and longing. "Challenge accepted," he murmured, and with that, he left her office, leaving Elena staring at the sunset, heart racing, and mind swirling with memories and unspoken tension. The spark was there, dangerous, irresistible, and infuriating. And Elena knew that keeping Adrian at a distance would be harder than she ever imagined. The office was quiet, the hum of fluorescent lights blending with the faint tapping of keyboards from the few late-working employees. Elena Hart stared at her laptop screen, but the numbers blurred into meaningless lines. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Adrian Kane, the man who had walked out of her life without explanation, now standing a mere few floors above her in the same building. Her phone buzzed. A message from a colleague, "Private meeting with Adrian. Urgent." Her chest tightened. She had been wary of one-on-one encounters, but curiosity gnawed at her. The professional in her knew she had to attend, the personal part, the part still scarred and wary, warned her to run. She stepped into the sleek conference room, and Adrian was already there, waiting with that calm, composed demeanor he always seemed to wear effortlessly. "Elena," he greeted, his tone measured, though his eyes held a flicker of unease. "Thank you for coming." She crossed her arms, leaning against the edge of the table. "You called this urgent. What is it, exactly?" He hesitated, as though weighing his words. "I owe you the truth. About everything. About why I disappeared that day." Her eyes narrowed, skepticism sharp and unyielding. "I don't want excuses, Adrian. I want honesty." He nodded slowly, taking a seat across from her. "Honesty. Then here it is. 3 years ago. I wasn't ready. My family was facing a financial scandal, one that could have destroyed both my career and the company I inherited. They wanted me to step aside, leave the marriage, leave you. And I panicked. I thought I could fix everything alone. I thought disappearing would protect you from the chaos. But all I did was hurt you, more than I could ever describe." Elena's breath caught. Part of her wanted to lash out, to remind him that no family scandal justified abandoning her at the altar. But another part, the part that remembered the man she loved, recognized the sincerity in his voice. The long-suppressed guilt, the shadow of regret that lingered in his eyes, was real. "You left me," she said, voice trembling but steady. "You left me to face humiliation, heartbreak, and uncertainty. And now you expect me to just forgive you." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Not forgive. Not yet. I don't expect anything from you, except to understand why I left. You deserved the truth, Elena. You always did." Her chest tightened, a mix of anger and something she hadn't felt in years, pity, maybe even longing. She had spent 3 years rebuilding herself, becoming stronger, sharper, more resilient. And yet, here he was, forcing her to confront emotions she thought she had buried forever. "And there's more," he continued, voice dropping to a quieter, almost hesitant tone. "I came back not just for the company, but because I never stopped thinking about you. I never stopped regretting the way I walked out." Elena stared at him, her mind a whirlwind. She wanted to hate him, to push him away, to remind herself of the pain he had caused. But she couldn't deny the pull, the magnetic, infuriating pull that had drawn her to him 3 years ago and now threatened to unravel the careful walls she had built around her heart. She rose, walking slowly toward the window, looking out over the city lights. "The past explains a lot," she said, her voice steady, though her hands shook slightly. "But explanations don't erase pain. They don't make you trustworthy again. And they certainly don't make me forget what I felt that day." Adrian rose too, standing a few feet behind her, respectful of the distance she demanded. "I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to prove that I'm not that man anymore. But I won't rush you, Elena. I'll wait as long as it takes, if you ever let me back in." She didn't turn to face him. The silence stretched, filled with unsaid words, memories, and possibilities. And for the first time since he returned, Elena felt the stirring of something dangerous, hope mingled with hesitation. The boardroom had shifted. The rules had changed. And one thing was clear, Adrian Kane was no longer just a ghost from her past. He was a presence that would challenge her in ways she couldn't yet predict. The conference room was alive with the hum of debate, the soft scratch of pens against notepads, and the faint buzz of laptops. Elena Hart sat at the head of the table, a stack of reports neatly arranged before her. Across the table, Adrian Kane leaned back in his chair, hands folded, his expression unreadable. The room crackled with unspoken tension, both personal and professional. "Based on the latest projections," Elena said, her voice steady, "we can optimize production without risking our current client contracts. The plan allows for growth while maintaining stability." Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of challenge in their depths. "Optimizing production is one thing, Elena, but are you considering market expansion? With our resources, we could increase revenue by 30% within the next quarter." "I am," she replied without hesitation. "But expansion without proper safeguards is reckless. We can't jeopardize what we've built just to chase numbers." A murmur ran through the staff. Adrian's lips curved into a faint smile. "I expected nothing less from you. Always the careful strategist." Elena held his gaze, refusing to be intimidated. "Careful doesn't mean weak, Mr. Kane. It means I know what I'm doing." The tension in the room was palpable, a subtle battle of wills disguised as corporate strategy. Every suggestion he made, every counterpoint she offered, was a dance of intellect and control, a professional chess game neither willing to lose. Once the meeting adjourned, the remaining staff filed out, leaving the two of them alone. The silence between them was thick, charged with history and unspoken emotion. "You're formidable," Adrian said quietly, stepping closer. "I underestimated you, Elena. Not just as a manager, but as a person." Elena didn't flinch. "I've grown," she said simply. And I won't let anyone, not even you, overshadow my achievements. He studied her, eyes softening for a fraction of a second before returning to their usual intensity. I admire that. I always did. She let out a slow breath, fighting the unexpected warmth his words ignited. Admiration doesn't excuse past mistakes, she said. And it doesn't earn my trust. I'm not asking for trust, he said, lowering his voice. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I've changed. That I'm not the man who left you at the altar. Elena felt her resolve waver for the briefest moment. 3 years of anger, 3 years of rebuilding, all collided with the memory of the man she had once loved, and the subtle pull of the man standing before her now. She shook her head, forcing herself to focus. Actions speak louder than words, Adrian. Show me you're different, not with promises, but with results. On every level. A slow smile curved his lips, tinged with both respect and challenge. Then let the games begin. As she returned to her desk, Elena realized the battle was no longer just professional. Adrian's presence ignited something she hadn't anticipated, a dangerous, compelling mixture of attraction and rivalry. Every meeting, every strategy session, every boardroom debate became a test, not just of skill, but of willpower, and of the heart she guarded fiercely. The city lights outside flickered like distant stars, but inside, a different kind of fire had been lit. Elena Hart was ready to play the game, on her terms. And Adrian Kane, for all his charm and regret, was about to find out that she would not be an easy opponent. The office was silent except for the low hum of computers and the faint rustle of papers. Elena Hart sat at her desk, eyes glued to the glowing spreadsheet on her screen. This was no ordinary quarter-end review. The company's biggest client was threatening to pull out, and the margin for error had vanished entirely. Failure wasn't an option. A soft knock at her office door made her glance up. Adrian Kane entered, a folder under his arm and his usual composed expression in place. We need to work together on this, he said, closing the door behind him. There's no way around it. The client expects a presentation in 2 days, and half the department is out sick. Elena's stomach twisted. She had spent months building distance between herself and him, cultivating control and independence. Now, the very man who had shattered her heart was being thrust into her space again, forcing collaboration. I don't need help, she said firmly. I can handle this. Adrian leaned against the edge of her desk, meeting her gaze evenly. You're good, Elena. Better than I ever expected. But this isn't about ego. This is about saving the company. And frankly, I'm not leaving the room until we get it right. The hours stretched into a tense, grinding rhythm of data, projections, and strategy. Every suggestion he made, every objection she raised, carried weight far beyond professional necessity. Sparks flew, sometimes literally, when their hands brushed while passing files, or when their eyes locked over the glare of their laptops. At one point, Elena slammed her pen down, frustration boiling over. This isn't just numbers, Adrian. This is about credibility, reputation, and years of hard work. I know, he said softly, leaning closer than necessary. And I wouldn't risk it if I didn't think we could pull this off. Together. The word together lingered in the air like a challenge. Elena's pulse quickened, a dangerous mix of anger and attraction coursing through her veins. She wanted to push him away, to scream that the past was over, but the closeness, the undeniable chemistry, made it impossible to stay entirely rational. By midnight, they had crafted a presentation that was sharp, precise, and impressive. The tension between them had not dissipated, it had intensified, charged with both unresolved history and present desire. Elena finally pushed back from her desk, rubbing her temples. I can't believe we actually did it, she murmured. And I don't know if I want to hate you or thank you. Adrian's lips curved into a slow, almost predatory smile. You can feel both. I won't mind. For a moment, the world narrowed down to just the two of them, the air thick with unspoken words, longing, and the dangerous thrill of proximity. Elena could feel the walls she had so carefully built around her heart begin to tremble. Then, as if sensing the intensity, Adrian stepped back, giving her space but letting a lingering gaze linger on her. Tomorrow, we face the client. Tonight, we survive, he said, his voice low, almost intimate. Alone in her office, Elena sank into her chair, heart hammering. She had survived heartbreak once, she reminded herself. She could survive this, too. But deep down, she knew the danger wasn't the client, the boardroom, or even Adrian's power, it was the pull he still held over her. And that pull was growing stronger by the minute. The city outside gleamed under the afternoon sun, but inside the Kane Enterprises boardroom, tension still hung thick in the air. Elena Hart stood at the head of the table, reviewing the final contract for the merger that had threatened the stability of her company. Every detail mattered, every signature counted, and one misstep could undo months of hard work. Adrian Kane entered quietly, closing the door behind him. Unlike before, there was no playful smirk, no teasing challenge, only the quiet weight of sincerity in his gaze. Elena, he began, voice steady. I've spoken to the client personally. I've guaranteed them that every aspect of this transition will be seamless. I'll take full responsibility for any issues that arise. Your reputation, and your company, are safe. She raised an eyebrow, skeptical. And why are you taking this on? I can handle it. He took a deliberate step closer, lowering his voice. Because I want to prove to you that I've changed. That I'm not the man who abandoned you. I'm willing to risk everything to show you that I mean what I say. Elena's chest tightened. 3 years of hurt and anger, 3 years of rebuilding herself, collided with the sincerity in his voice. Part of her wanted to retreat, to remind herself that no words could erase the past. But another part, the part that remembered love and hope, stirred. Why now? She asked, quietly, searching his eyes for any sign of manipulation. Because I can't keep standing on the sidelines, he said. Not with you. Not with us. I made a mistake once, Elena. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to fix it, but only if you let me. Elena studied him, every line of his face, every hint of emotion. The man before her was both the one who had hurt her and the one she had once loved. And somehow, through the years and the pain, she could see the sincerity etched into his every movement. The silence stretched, filled with the weight of unspoken words. Then Elena spoke, voice soft but firm. I'm not ready to forgive completely. I'm not ready to trust. But I can acknowledge effort. I can see that you've changed, at least, that you're trying. A flicker of relief crossed Adrian's features. That's all I ask. That's all I ever wanted. The next few hours were a dance of collaboration, careful compromise, and unspoken connection. Adrian's presence was steady, supportive, and respectful of boundaries. For the first time since his return, Elena allowed herself to feel something other than suspicion or anger. When the final contract was signed, Adrian held the papers in his hands, a small, genuine smile tugging at his lips. We did it, he said simply. Elena looked at him, a subtle warmth breaking through her usual reserve. We did. And you didn't just save the company. You proved something else. That people can change. He stepped closer, the air between them charged with anticipation. And I hope that someday, you'll let me prove even more, to you. Elena felt her walls quiver, the armor she had built over 3 years showing the first cracks. She didn't speak, didn't need to. The intensity in his gaze, combined with the quiet promise in his voice, said enough. For the first time, she realized that redemption wasn't just about apologies, it was about actions, effort, and persistence. And Adrian Kane was showing her all of it, one step at a time. The sunset outside painted the city in hues of gold and rose, reflecting the slow thaw of a heart that had once been frozen. Elena Hart wasn't ready to surrender completely, but she could feel the possibility of something new, something real, beginning to take root. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of fallen leaves and distant rain. Elena Hart stood on the balcony of her office, overlooking the city she had built with her own hands. Tonight marked the anniversary of the day her life had been shattered. 3 years ago, she had been left at the altar, humiliated and heartbroken. Tonight, everything felt different. Adrian Kane appeared beside her, the quiet click of his shoes announcing his presence before he spoke. "You always choose the highest vantage point," he observed, voice soft, almost teasing. "Looking down on the city, or maybe just keeping watch over everything you've accomplished." Elena didn't turn immediately. "It helps me think," she replied, eyes fixed on the horizon. "And it reminds me of how far I've come." Alone. He stepped closer, careful not to crowd her space. "Not entirely alone," he said, his tone gentle. "I've been here, quietly, trying to be worthy of your trust again." She finally faced him, her expression measured, but her eyes betrayed the whirlwind inside. "Adrian, I've spent 3 years convincing myself I didn't need you, that I could survive without you. And I have. I am stronger. But seeing you, now, knowing what I know, I don't know if I can just walk away entirely." He reached out tentatively, as if afraid to shatter the fragile balance. "Elena, I don't want to force you. I just want to walk with you, side by side, as equals this time. No running, no hiding, no past mistakes between us." Her breath caught, the vulnerability she rarely allowed herself spilling over. "You left me once," she whispered, "and I can't forget the pain you caused. I won't forget it. But I see the effort you've made. I see the man you've become." A faint smile appeared on his lips, tinged with relief and hope. "Then maybe, we can try again. Carefully. Slowly. On our terms." Elena studied him, the weight of 3 years of hurt pressing against her chest. And yet, the warmth, the sincerity, and the undeniable connection were impossible to ignore. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I'm willing to try," she said, her voice strong but tender. "But I make no promises beyond honesty and respect. You have to earn everything, again." "I wouldn't have it any other way," Adrian replied, his hand brushing hers lightly, reverently, a silent acknowledgement of the trust she was extending. For the first time in years, Elena felt a sense of peace. The pain of the past remained, but it no longer ruled her. She had survived abandonment, heartbreak, and betrayal, and now, she could embrace the possibility of love without losing herself. They stood together on the balcony, the city lights flickering like distant stars, reflecting the slow, deliberate thaw of a frozen heart. Elena Hart had rebuilt her life, and now, she was choosing not just survival, but connection. Not just trust, but hope. Adrian leaned closer, his voice low and intimate. "No running this time. Just forward, together." Elena met his gaze, feeling the stirrings of something deeper than attraction, a partnership, a union forged by trials and growth. She nodded slowly, letting the warmth of the moment settle into her bones. "Yes," she said finally. "Forward. Together." And with that, the past dissolved, not erased, but reconciled, leaving space for something real, something lasting. The door to her heart was no longer closed, it was open, cautiously, but fully. For Elena Hart, this was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one written with strength, respect, and the possibility of love earned, not given.